Forge Master of Fuses. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 576 Nonsense. Zhao Jin quickly bowed to Songxi, pretending to be innocent. Songxi reluctantly let go of Tang Fan, poked his back teeth, and sneered, "When we return to the Alliance, I will send this guy to the Marshal's mansion and let Ms. Yago arrange a blind date banquet for him 3 times a day. Make sure to find him someone he likes, pass on his excellent genes, and let the great profession of mecha foundry flourish. Take care of his body by the way, don't cough and wheeze all the time." As soon as Songxi finished speaking, Zhao Jin, who had just calmed down, started coughing again. This time, the cough was more severe than the last time, and it took a long time to calm down. Seeing that Zhao Jin had suffered retribution, Miss Tang Fan couldn't help but laugh. Looking at the little girl with a smile like a flower and Major General Song, whose face was slightly relieved, he realized his true identity as a tool. Zhao Jin, who was coughing so hard that he couldn't close his mouth, silently shed a handful of sympathetic tears for himself. He wanted to protest to Songxi, but thinking about the wonderful scene of arranging a blind date banquet according to 3 meals, Zhao Jin couldn't help shaking his hand and accidentally touched the design drawing on the optical computer. After being touched by him, the design drawing, which had been modified and restored 5 times, was played in a loop like a cartoon. That was the hard work of Tang Fan and Zhao Jin, who had worked sleeplessly for several days and nights. The two of them quickly put aside other things and rushed to rescue. But just when Zhao Jin's finger was about to touch the screen, Tang Fan suddenly stopped him. "Wait a minute." Zhao Jin looked at her with a puzzled look, but Tang Fan did not explain, just frowned, pursed his lips, and looked at the slightly messy picture seriously. Zhao Jin silently withdrew his hand and stood behind Tang Fan. Songxi also frowned and walked over, standing behind Tang Fan, standing shoulder to shoulder with Zhao Jin. At the moment when Tang Fan stretched out his hand behind him, Songxi even consciously handed over his optical computer. Tang Fan took Songxi's laptop and took a lot of photos of the screen without any hesitation. This tacit understanding made Zhao Jin stunned. Zhao Jin, who had been single for most of his life, suddenly had a feeling that it would be nice to have a partner like this. However, this thought only stayed in Zhao Jin's mind for a moment before he threw it away. Compared with these love affairs, Zhao Jin was more concerned about the design in front of him. To be precise, Tang Fan saw something from the design that was playing in a loop in front of him. He stared at the screen hard, especially when Tang Fan took the photo. He didn't even blink. Unfortunately, he didn't see anything. As a genius in the field of mecha casting, Zhao Jin couldn't see what Songxi, who barely touched the edge of mecha casting, could not see. But Major General Songxi had an advantage that Zhao Jin didn't have. As a layman in mecha casting, he could ask questions when he didn't understand, without worrying about being laughed at. So, when Tang Fan's frequency of taking photos decreased, Songxi asked decisively under Zhao Jin's encouraging gaze, "What did you find from this?" Since Songxi asked sincerely, Tang Fan answered without hesitation, "I saw that 1 + 1 is greater than 1. 1 + 1 is of course greater than 1. This nonsense that everyone in the league knows." Zhao Jin suddenly stopped talking halfway, looking at Tang Fan with shock in his eyes. That's right. 1 + 1 is greater than 1, why didn't he think of it? Chapter 577. In mathematics, 1 + 1 = 2. But in the field of mecha casting, the probability of 1 + 1 = 2 is almost 0. Most of the time, due to the interaction of various materials, 1 + 1 = 1, or less than 1, which is the norm. As for the situation where 1 + 1 is greater than 1, it is simply a matter of chance. Especially for them who have been stuck in a stalemate for a long time, it is like a person who has been thrown into prison for unforgivable crimes, and then the emperor suddenly pardons the world. This joy of surviving in a desperate situation has greatly stimulated Zhao Jin's research enthusiasm. Major General Songxi's optical brain changed hands in an instant and became a hot commodity that Tang Fan and Zhao Jin scrambled for. Looking at the obsessed look of the two people, Songxi knew that he would not be able to get his optical brain back for a while. Fortunately, in this place where birds don't shit and turtles don't lay eggs, optical brains are not a necessity, and there will be no problem if the optical brain falls into the hands of two people. Song-si can only shake his head and turn away. No way. Major General Song-si is busy. Most people only need to do research, but Major General Song-si must take on all the affairs of this place. Although he, like everyone else, is eager to leave this place of trouble as soon as possible. But the sense of responsibility that a Major General of the Alliance should have makes him unable to leave the mess left by Jim Field aside. After discussing with Song Yuanshi transferred a regiment from the 7th Corps to replace him. After all, they are his own people. Although the task is arduous, Jin Ruan, who received the task, did not procrastinate at all. Look, before Tang Fan and Zhao Jin have figured out the reason, Jin Ruan brought people to find Song-si and started the handover. To be honest, this little sister Jin Ruan is an old acquaintance of Tang Fan, but it's a pity that Tang Fan is obsessed with research and can't extricate himself, so he is destined to miss it. Of course, Tang Fan missed more than just Jin Ruan. Tang Yang's arrival, the transfer of Jim Field's pile of experiments, and even the lifting of the abandoned giant battleship where their temporary laboratory is located. Everything, she missed. When she and Zhao Jin finally studied the upgraded version of the detector thoroughly, they came back to their senses from the mysterious research. All they could see was the familiar nebula belonging to the Savage Star region. The always calm and composed Master Tang burst into tears. This nebula is so beautiful. Why didn't I discover it before? This sentence expressed Tang Fan's homesickness and made Zhao Jin feel mixed emotions. Yes. After thinking about it, the nebula in my hometown is the most beautiful. However, the road to home is too far, and he seems to have no way back. As smart as Tang Fan is, he quickly tasted the melancholy in Zhao Jin's words. Think of others. The joy of returning home in Tang Fan's heart was suddenly diluted a little. She looked at Zhao Jin deeply, pondered for a moment, and said softly, "It has been less than 20 years since the development of the Savage Star region. My roots are not here. It's just that I have been here for a long time and my heart is here, so this has become my hometown." Zhao Jin is also a smart man. And he quickly understood the meaning of Tang Fan's words. Although the little girl's kind comfort was useless, in order not to worry this little girl who is not related to her, she still reluctantly curled her lips and smiled at Tang Fan. But Zhao Jin's acting skills were really poor, and that smile was not much better than crying. Chapter 578 Landing. Looking at Zhao Jin's forced smile, Tang Fan's heart rarely flashed a trace of pity. But there are some things that can't be persuaded. Tang Fan thought about it, and calmly began to change the topic. "Senior Zhao, what are your plans next?" Tang Fan's words hit the point. Zhao Jin is the only person who can be considered a human being in this corner. Therefore, unlike others, he can only spend his whole life under the surveillance of the expeditionary force, or even in the laboratory. In view of the contribution made by Zhao Jin on the way back, Song-si gave Zhao Jin another choice to take the path of regaining citizenship as a citizen of the Alliance who lost his identity due to being abducted by Stark pirates. Generally speaking, in order to live on this land as a citizen of the Alliance again, some conditions must be met. First, the various taxes and fees that should have been paid in the past few decades must be paid. Secondly, various inspections including genetic testing must be accepted. Third, report to the government of the settlement regularly for 3 consecutive years. Although this condition is a bit harsh, it is definitely 100 times better than the comrades in arms who have lost their freedom forever. The last 2 of the 3 conditions were not a problem for Zhao Jin. The problem was the first prerequisite, the various taxes that should be paid for decades. Zhao Jin, who had never worried about money, could not help but feel a headache when he thought that he would become a millionaire the moment he set foot on the land of the Alliance. Having to bend over backwards for a few bowls of rice was simply a headache. But Zhao Jin himself knew that this was the most generous condition that Song-si could get for him. Millions of credit points were nothing to Zhao Jin in the past. But now, Zhao Jin rubbed his hands, moved his lips several times, and then spoke to Tang Fan with difficulty. "I heard that one of the 2 largest mecha companies in the entire alliance is yours." Tang Fan laughed and said modestly, "I have invested in a mecha casting company called Tang's Mecha. With everyone's support, life is not bad. But I haven't been back for more than half a year, and I don't know how the company is now. If Senior Zhao is interested, you can go to the company with me after we land. At that time, if you have any opinions and suggestions, just let me know." After Tang Fan said this, Zhao Jin could only swallow his words silently and nodded with a dry smile. Seeing Zhao Jin frowning for a few million credit points, Tang Fan smiled unkindly. The nebula has been seen, how far can landing be? With the efforts of generations of expeditionary forces, today's savage star domain is no longer what it used to be, and it is likely to become the headquarters of the expeditionary force. The port has complete facilities. Even in the face of giant battleships that have been basically scrapped, there is a complete set of measures. Tang Fan and others did not feel any bumps at all, and they were successfully settled. Major General Song Si was the first to get off the starship and started the handover with a ground crew. No one knew what Song Si said, but the thousands of people on the starship were quickly divided into several groups. The first group of people transformed by Jim Field were taken away. Next, the group belonging to the Cheyenne-Soho Star region was taken away. As for the rest, they were surrounded alone. Chapter 579. Most of them were soldiers of the Expeditionary Army. Even if there were 100 or so people, they stood in a neat row surrounded by a dozen or so people. No one took an extra step, as if there was an invisible spell that fixed them. The rest were divided into two parts. One part was the relatives and friends of the Expeditionary Army. For example, Tang Fan and his ilk. Even if they were surrounded in the center, surrounded by silent and upright expeditionary soldiers, they were at ease and did what they had to do, just like they were at home. The other part was outsiders who had nothing to do with the Expeditionary Army. For example, Tao Qingxi and Zhao Jin. Although they knew that this group of people would not do anything to them, their inner uneasiness still made them feel uneasy. Especially Zhao Jin, the millionaire in debt. Thinking about the debt he had when he landed, looking at the fully armed soldiers around him, and finally weighing the strength of both sides, Zhao Jin felt even more uneasy. In order to ease his uneasiness, Zhao Jin paced back and forth. Just when Zhao Jin inadvertently passed by Tang Fan for the fifth time, Song Si, who was standing straight at the front of the team, suddenly moved. He gestured to the head of the team, Su Yan, who was guarding them, and after obtaining permission, he turned around and waved to Zhao Jin. Although Zhao Jin, who didn't know what was going on, was a little reluctant, he still walked over. Song Si hooked Zhao Jin's shoulders and walked to the corner of the wall. Zhao Jin struggled for a while, but couldn't break free. He could only follow Song Si's steps and staggered to the wall. Seeing that Song Si looked like he had something to say, the people around him consciously stepped back, forming a vacuum zone around the two of them. Major General Song Si curled his lips in satisfaction at everyone's self-consciousness. That smile was a little bit evil. Tang Fan saw it and couldn't help but secretly say that it was not good. Song Si, this guy, obviously wanted to snatch people from her. His smile was not a smile at all, but a taste of calculation. It's not just Zhao Jin who is scheming, but also her. Men's words are unreliable. He keeps saying that he likes you, but when he snatches you away, he doesn't show any mercy. Tang Fan stared at Song Si's back, secretly hating her. Zhao Jin was the first to contact her, but she was just a little reserved and greedy, and she actually missed the opportunity. If she had known that Song Si would come to hook up with her, she would have stopped while she was ahead and signed a contract with Zhao Jin for 10 or 8 years to trap him. Now, if she delivers herself to him again, she will be at a disadvantage. I don't know what condition Song Si has set for Zhao Jin, and whether she still has a chance. Tang Fan was thinking wildly, and he didn't forget to keep a close eye on him. Feeling Tang Fan's nervousness, Song Si's smile got a little bigger. I don't know what Song Si whispered to Zhao Jin, but Zhao Jin's face became visibly ugly. However, no matter how powerful this Monkey King is, he can't turn over the palm of Tathagata Buddha. No matter how dark Zhao Jin's face was, under the coercion and inducement of Song Si, he had to reluctantly lower his noble head. Zhao Jin's head shook slightly up and down, and Tang Fan's tears were about to fall, and his mind was full of Zhao Jin's promise to Song Si. Although the relationship between Tang's Mecha and the expeditionary force is close, but it's still different. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 580 Grievances. For a moment, Tang Fan looked at Song Si with eyes full of resentment. As if sensing Tang Fan's resentment, Song Si tilted her head, and when her eyes met Tang Fan's, she did not forget to smile slightly. Song Si was already good-looking, and with that smile as bright as the sun, it was simply a critical hit. Even though they had seen each other quite often, Tang Fan could not help but be distracted for a moment. When he came to his senses, Tang Fan looked over again, and it was the scene of Zhao Jin signing and sealing on Song Si's light brain. Miss Tang Fan lost control of her expression all of a sudden, squatting on the ground with a pout. Her frustration was beyond words. Tang Yang, who was paying attention to his daughter the whole time, could not help but raise his eyebrows. What happened during the time he was away from his daughter? Or was his daughter possessed by something without him knowing? Did she throw away her strong and independent character to feed the dogs? The thing she liked was taken away, but instead of thinking about taking it back, she got petty. This is not like Tang Fan. Tang Yang frowned and looked at his daughter again, but unexpectedly found that there was another person next to his cabbage. The person who had just robbed his daughter of a person was squatting next to his daughter. A pair of claws with distinct joints fell on his daughter's head, occasionally twirling the long and smooth hair. Tang Yang felt that the claws were not pleasing to the eye, and even had an impulse to chop them off. He took a deep breath and kept telling himself that the guy was his comrade in arms, a fellow soldier, and the only son of Song Yuanqi. Tang Yang silently recited the military regulations of the Expeditionary Army 3 times, and kept recalling Song Yuanqi's kindness to him, and barely suppressed his temper. At the same time, a ridiculous thought suddenly hit Tang Yang's mind. Could it be that my daughter was influenced by this guy and became like this? Tang Yang touched his chin, and his eyes, which had finally calmed down, became sharp again, piercing straight at Song Si. Feeling that gaze like a thorn in his back, Song Si's body froze. In the territory of the Expeditionary Army, there were only a handful of people who dared to look at him like this. Without looking back, he knew who was staring at him at this moment, wishing to deal with him as soon as possible. Thinking about Tang Yang's lethality, thinking about the extent of Tang Yang's daughter control, and thinking about what he had just done. The villain in Song Si's heart couldn't help but groan and shed tears. How could he forget that his future father-in-law, who was obsessed with his daughter, was also here? Is it too late for him to take back his wanton big hand on Tang Fan's head? If it's too late, then forget it. After all, if provoking Tang Fan is to be an enemy of Tang Yang, he and Tang Yang would have been irreconcilable. In this case, it doesn't seem to make any difference to offend him more severely, right? Song Si, who had come to his senses, ignored Tang Yang's murderous gaze and lowered his head to coax the little beauty in his heart. Are you angry? Tang Fan, who was angry, didn't want to pay attention to him at all, let alone listen to his nonsense. He turned around, changed his place, and continued to draw circles. Because of the medication, Tang Fan has always been relatively small. Even as an adult, he couldn't catch up with the average person. At this moment, the little girl squatted on the ground, huddled into a small ball, drawing circles with grievance. That look directly made Song Si's heart soften. Chapter 581, Business as Usual. He sighed silently, rubbed the little girl's head, and asked softly, "Do you want it so much?" Song Si said this sentence in 1,000 ways, as if it carried some unspeakable deep meaning. The little girl's face turned red all of a sudden. Song Si didn't think much about it at first, but when he saw Tang Fan's red cheeks, he suddenly came to his senses. He touched his nose, changed his words, and asked again, "Do you cherish talent so much?" Tang Fan automatically ignored Song Si's fierce words, nodded gently, and whispered, "My credit points are all ready." As a result, Song Si intervened. Watching the cooked duck fly away, that feeling is simply amazing. The condemnation in the little girl's eyes and the grievance in her words made Song Si, who intercepted halfway, feel inexplicably guilty. He touched his nose and carefully handed the hot contract written by Zhao Jin on his bare head to Tang Fan. Then, "I'll transfer the contract to you." Tang Fan stared at Song Si blankly, his face full of disbelief. Song Si smiled and repeated, "Since you value talent so much, Mr. Zhao Jin's 20-year labor contract can be transferred to you. Are you happy?" Tang Fan was about to nod, but suddenly remembered the countless tricks of Major General Song Si, and his excited expression froze on his face. "There is no free lunch in the world. Our Major General Song's family is not a charity. What's the point of working so hard to get the labor contract?" Looking at the little girl's alert and official look, Song Si felt like his knee was shot for no reason. "Their family is not a charity," Why did he go to trick Zhao Jin for no reason? Isn't it to save his little girl's trouble and effort? But who knew that this little ungrateful wolf didn't appreciate it at all and even doubted his sincerity? He covered his chest, stared at Tang Fan, and said with a look of grief and indignation, "Is that how you see me?" Tang Fan looked at his uncomfortable appearance and couldn't help doubting himself, whether he thought too badly of this guy. Maybe this guy was really idle and had nothing to do, so he helped her to trick Zhao Jin. Before he finished reflecting on himself, Song Si's voice rang again, "Since you have seen through it, I won't pretend anymore. Mr. Zhao Jin's labor contract is very popular. Since you are my future daughter-in-law, I will give priority to your Tang's mecha. So, shouldn't you also express your appreciation for the transfer fee?" Such shameless words were said by Song Si as if it was natural. Tang Fan was so angry that he laughed. "How do you want me to express it?" Feeling that Tang Fan's tone was not right, Song Si's desire to survive suddenly came up. "You and Mr. Zhao Jin have joined forces, and the launch of a new mecha is just around the corner. With our relationship, shouldn't you give priority to the expeditionary army? The little credit points that Mr. Zhao Jin needs, our expeditionary army will first be used as a deposit for the new mecha." Song Si's words full of desire to survive successfully made Tang Fan put down her clenched fist. "It's a deal. I'll have someone bring the official seal over later, and we'll handle this matter impartially." Seeing the little girl return to her lively appearance, Song Si couldn't help but curl his lips and chuckle. "This girl, I'm afraid she's been confused by anger." He and her, Tang's mecha and the expeditionary army, have long been tied together. It's impossible to handle this matter impartially. It's impossible in this lifetime. Chapter 582. Tang's new mechas were provided to the expeditionary army first, and the expeditionary army gave Tang's mechas invisible protection. This kind of tacit understanding was considered fair to fair. Miss Tang Fan, who was dizzy, didn't figure it out at all, and stood up in a hurry. Facts have proved that no matter how high the physical level is, it cannot reverse the laws of nature. After squatting for a long time, even if Tang Fan is as strong as him, he will feel dizzy and stagger. Fortunately, Major General Song Si discovered it in time, hugged her small waist and pulled her forward. In an instant, soft jade and warm fragrance filled his arms. Before Song Si could feel his heart ripple, he felt a hot, almost materialized sight, staring at him, especially the hand he fell on Tang Fan's slender waist. Song Si rubbed his back teeth, groaned, and reluctantly let go of the girl's waist with his big hand. He held the girl's shoulders and asked softly, "Are you okay? Do you want to find a room to rest for a while?" Faced with Song Si's undisguised concern, Tang Fan was not very appreciative. As soon as he stood firm, he shook off Song Si's hand. "Don't worry. It's just that I squatted for too long and my blood pressure is low. I won't die before I develop a new mecha for you." The little girl's angry words made Song Si's face dark all of a sudden. As a soldier, Song Si was used to life and death, but it didn't mean that he was used to life and death. He could fight Tang Gang for people, he could fight Tang's mecha for people, but he couldn't fight the King of Hell for people. She could make light of her life and death, insignificant, but he couldn't treat it as a joke. "Little girl, can you say something nice? Don't talk about life and death all the time." Song Si held Tang Fan's shoulders and spoke every word with extra seriousness. The moment their eyes met, Tang Fan even saw a trace of panic in his eyes. The moment he glimpsed Tao Qingxi from the corner of his eyes, Tang Fan seemed to understand something. This man in front of him really likes her. He likes her so much that he doesn't allow her to joke about life and death, and he likes her so much that he is unwilling to give up, even though he knows she is different from others. At this moment, Tang Fan suddenly felt the love that Song Si had clearly placed in front of her. The anger that was aroused by Song Si gradually dissipated because of this panicked look, and reason gradually returned to Tang Fan's mind. Tang Fan was shocked to realize how childish and ridiculous he was. It's all Song Si's fault. If it weren't for him. Tang Fan shook his head, as if he wanted to shake this idea out of his mind. Unfortunately, it didn't work. The scenes from knowing Song Si to the present are so clear. From stranger to familiar, from mutual pit to pampering, Song Si walked towards her step by step, changing her little by little. There are thousands of people in the world. In their eyes, Tang Fan is the head of Tang's mecha, a genius in mecha casting, a business wizard, and an indestructible giant. But in Song Si's eyes, she is just like thousands of ordinary girls in the alliance, needing protection, care, and pampering. In front of him, She doesn't need to be upright, mature, sensible, or strong and brave. When she advances, he will be the strongest backing. When she retreats, he will become a sharp knife to clear the way. When she succeeds, he will applaud and cheer. When she fails, he will cover for her. He has already existed in her world for a long time, but she herself has not noticed it. Chapter 583. Tang Fan looked up and looked at the man in front of him seriously. He was wearing an olive green expeditionary uniform, which wrapped around a perfect and powerful body. The uniform was straight, and the olive green buttons were buttoned meticulously, all the way up to the top, covering his Adam's apple. If this guy stood with his eyes straight, he would definitely have an abstinence that would keep people away from him. But when he held her shoulder with his hands and his nervous eyes that could not be concealed, this abstinence was completely destroyed. She seemed to have pulled down the altar of the Expeditionary Army's proud son of heaven, the Alliance Major General who did not recognize his relatives. What a serious sin. Tang Fan silently confessed for 3 seconds. Then, she stretched out her sinful hands towards Song Si, and rubbed the neatly combed hair of Major General Song into a mess. Then she took back her hands with a guilty conscience, stuck out her tongue, and said with a smile, I know. I won't dare to do it next time. The little girl's action did not make Song Si angry, but the perfunctory tone made Song Si angry enough. He grabbed Tang Fan's shoulders, shook them, and said viciously, can you pay more attention to your own business? Tang Fan raised her palm-sized face, blinked her clean and clear big eyes, and said innocently, aren't you worried about my business? This made sense. Major General Song Si was not only speechless, but even blushed. Afraid that the little girl would find out, Major General Song left a sentence it's up to you and fled. Miss Tang Fan looked at someone who was unaware of the hand and foot, and couldn't help laughing. Tang Gang naturally saw it, but he was not happy at all. It was bad enough to hold a baby in the palm of your hand, cherish it for so many years, but still be stared at by others. Under the watchful eyes of the public, Fan did not shy away from touching the boy. It was obvious that he did not treat the boy as an outsider. This made him, an old father, feel even worse. Tang Gang always remembered the day when he first met Tang Fan. Tang Fan, who had left the mother's body early, developed very well and even opened his eyes earlier than expected. He hurried over from Tang Meng's bedside. Tang Fan had been put into the nutrition cabin. After about 5 or 6 hours, he touched this child who was related to him by blood for the first time. The moment his hand touched her soft body and tender skin, she suddenly moved her hands and feet and showed him a toothless smile. He, who always believed that men shed blood but not tears, suddenly burst into tears. This soft little girl just hit his heart and left a deep mark. From that day on, he vowed to do his best to treat her well for the rest of his life. Therefore, he gave her the identity of a daughter, gave her everything he could give, raised her in the palm of his hand, and was reluctant to hide or scold her. He never thought that one day she would leave him and run to the arms of another man. He didn't dare to think about it at all. When he thought of that scene, Tang Gang's heart. But some things will not happen if you don't think about them. The facts are in front of him. Looking at the not surprised expressions of the group of people in Song Si's personal guards, this kind of thing should have happened more than once. Tang Gang's heart, which belongs to an old father, sank little by little. Chapter 584, Confusion of Right and Wrong. Following Song Si, the old father Tang Gang also symbolically said hello to his comrades, left the standing punishment team, and walked towards Tang Fan step by step. Looking at his father with a frown on his face, thinking about what he had just done, Tang Fan's face flashed a trace of panic, but he still stepped forward and called softly, Dad. Tang Gang drooped his mouth and snorted, if I didn't take the initiative to come to you, you would have thrown me, your father, behind your head. For a moment, Tang Fan faintly smelled a sour smell in the air. Is this gentleman jealous? I just discussed some official business with Major General Song. Tang Gang raised his eyebrows and sneered. What kind of official business can make him blush and run away? Tang Fan shrugged, spread his hands, and whispered, we just discussed Mr. Zhao Jin's labor contract. Who knew he would blush? Alice. I say. It's not me who ran away. Why are you asking me? Ask him. The more Tang Fan talked, the more he felt that he was right. He stiffened his neck, was righteous, and looked serious, which almost made Tang Gang's nose crooked. It's only been a few days since we last met, and you have learned to fool me with that kid. Tang Gang showed that he didn't believe it, which gave Tang Fan a headache. Man, Your name is Unreasonable Trouble. Tang Gang, who is unreasonable and unreasonable, is only about 3 years old, and there can't be more. She can't deal with such a Tang Gang. Tang Fan has no choice but to use her own external aid. She opened the computer as quickly as possible and sent a video message to Zhao Jingshu in front of Tang Gang. Zhao Jingshu, who had heard the noise from afar, had been waiting there for a long time. As soon as the computer rang, she answered the call immediately. On the screen, not only did Tang Fan's small face appear, but also the resolute face next to her. That was the person she had been thinking about day and night for half a year. Zhao Jingshu, who is always dignified and generous, was stunned for a rare moment, and her fingers unconsciously raised. Just when Zhao Jingshu's hand was about to touch the screen, Tang Fan's voice came over. Aunt Zhao, my father not only does not support my work, but also makes trouble all day long. Come over with the official seal and help me, and take care of my father by the way. After saying that, without waiting for Zhao Jingshu to react, Tang Fan quickly hung up the video. This magical operation successfully shocked Tang Gang and Zhao Jingshu, as well as all the onlookers. Tang Fan, who had successfully filed a complaint, didn't care about these things at all. He put his hands on his waist, looked at Tang Gang with satisfaction, and said with a smile, since you don't listen to what I say, I can only find someone you can listen to and explain this to you clearly. Tang Gang's mouth twitched, and he couldn't say a word. It was obviously this girl who was not honest, so how could he be the one who didn't listen to her? His lovely little girl has changed. Not only did she have a little secret with him, but she also learned to use words to evade him and confuse right and wrong. Who did she learn this skill of talking nonsense with a serious face? Maybe, it is possible. No, it must be SYNOPSIS. Dare to lead his daughter astray. This account, Tang Gang completely remembered it with SYNOPSIS. Inadvertently, SYNOPSIS had another blame. This was put on him by his own father-in-law, who used his imagination to make up. Chapter 585. Of course, even if SYNOPSIS knew, nothing would change. No way. Who made him plot against someone else's daughter? It's just a pot, so just carry it. A lot of debts don't worry, a lot of lice don't itch. SYNOPSIS, who had offended Tang Gang a long time ago, was not afraid of having another messy account. It didn't matter that he couldn't beat Tang Gang, he still had allies. He couldn't control Tang Gang, but there were people who could control Tang Gang. For example, Ms. Yao, who was going crazy thinking about her granddaughter, and Song Yuanqi, who loved his wife like his life. However, the destructive power of these two big guys was also first class. Now, his little girl is still ignorant, and she can't stand the tossing of the two big guys. It's better to wait until his relationship with the little girl is more stable before releasing the two big guys. As for where is Tang Gang? SYNOPSIS glanced at the labor contract in his light brain and curled his lips. It is said that the more the mother-in-law sees her son-in-law, the more satisfied she is. The future mother-in-law is coming soon, and he has to prepare. As long as he can take down his mother-in-law, Tang Gang is nothing to be afraid of. So, when Zhao Jingshu rushed over with the official seal, she didn't see her husband and children, but saw SYNOPSIS, and a trace of surprise flashed across her face. Although Zhao Jingshu thought she was hiding well, she didn't escape SYNOPSIS' eyes. However, this girl knew the principle of seeing through but not saying it, so she didn't expose it. SYNOPSIS walked directly to the meeting room to meet Zhao Jingshu, and put the conditions he and Tang Fan had agreed on in black and white in front of Zhao Jingshu. Zhao Jingshu read it word by word, and couldn't help frowning. Staring at Zhao Jingshu, SYNOPSIS saw that the situation was not right, and asked weakly, is there anything wrong with this contract? How could there be something wrong with the contract written by the Expeditionary Forces lawyers? Zhao Jingshu did not answer SYNOPSIS' question, which obviously had no technical content. With a sullen face, she gently placed a contract on the table, knocked it, and said in a cold voice, is this contract really finalized by Major General Song and Maya Fan? Zhao Jingshu's question directly confused SYNOPSIS. After he turned this sentence around in his mind for a few times, he looked at the contract under Zhao Jingshu's finger and suddenly smiled. He thought he had done it perfectly, but he didn't expect that he couldn't hide it from Zhao Jingshu's pair of sharp eyes. As expected of the mistress of the Tang family, she is well aware of the routine of taking advantage of small gains and suffering big losses. It is obvious that she will not be fooled. This is interesting. SYNOPSIS smiled slightly, looked directly at Zhao Jingshu, and said affirmatively, "This is indeed a contract finalized by Fan, and if you don't believe it, you can go to Fan to confirm it in person." Zhao Jingshu raised her eyebrows, looked at him deeply, and did not comment. Song Si's tongue touched his back teeth. He tutted, and said with a smile, "Senior and I have known each other for a short time. It is reasonable for you to worry about me." I didn't think it through. As he said that, Song Si slowly stood up and made a gesture of invitation. Zhao Jingshu stood up, picked up the contract on the table and flicked it, sneering, "It's embarrassing to say. The brains of us old Tang family are not very good. It's barely enough to drive a mecha. It's really hard to talk about a contract. I didn't ask clearly, and I really didn't dare to write rashly for a while. I'm sorry to make Major General Song laugh." Song Si smiled and shook his head. "After all, it's a big deal to sign a contract, and it's reasonable for you to be cautious. We are all family, it doesn't exist." Chapter 586. Song Si's words made Zhao Jingshu's brows tightly locked together, and her body could not help but pause. If it was her student in front of her, she would have thrown a sentence "family" or something. There is no such thing, can you just say it casually? But in front of him was the Alliance Major General. Although he was a junior, Zhao Jingshu had to consider the issue of politeness. Zhao Jingshu pursed her lips and tried to think about how to say it more tactfully, and suddenly remembered that Afan was the goddaughter appointed by the marshal's wife. With this calculation, Song Si's words about family were barely justified. Zhao Jingshu's anger, which had just risen up, dissipated most of it at once, and she reluctantly raised her legs and followed Song Si's pace. Zhao Jingshu thought that she managed her expression quite well, and her distraction was only a matter of a moment, but it did not hide it from Song Si's sharp eyes. Song Si clenched his fist lightly against his forehead, smiled bitterly in his heart, and thought to himself that it was not good. The love story of Tangang and Zhao Jingshu was too famous, which made him have a deep impression of Zhao Jingshu's stubbornness and love brain, and made him misjudge Zhao Jingshu's IQ. If Zhao Jingshu was so easy to fool, how could she be a teacher at the Blue Sea Mecha Academy for so many years and also serve as a mecha designer for Tang's mecha? What kind of simple role would a woman who could make Tangang and Tang Fan, father and daughter, feel at ease at the same time be? It seems that he was too careless. A concession not only failed to please the future mother-in-law, but also made Zhao Jingshu suspicious of herself. It's really clever. It seems that the matter of marrying a daughter-in-law has to be considered in the long run. Although he was thinking about it, Major General Song Si was stunned for only a moment, and quickly restrained his expression before Zhao Jingshu came back to his senses. After knowing how powerful Zhao Jingshu was, Song Si restrained his little thoughts, took a half step, and led her in the direction of Tang Fan. The two places were not far apart. Song Si led Zhao Jingshu to turn a few corners before they saw a large group of people wearing expeditionary uniforms. Tang Gang's figure was successfully blurred in the olive green. Even Zhao Jingshu, who had been entangled with him for half her life, couldn't find him for a while. On the contrary, Tang Fan, who was dressed in casual clothes and standing alone, was particularly eye-catching. After more than half a year, the girl's figure has not changed much, but her hair has grown a lot. Perhaps it was not convenient, so Tang Fan tied her up with a rope that he didn't know where he got from. The shape was particularly unique and even a little bit taut. But the girl herself didn't realize it at all. She was pulling the strange man who also had eyebrows and beards, whispering to the light brain. Although it was not born from her belly, as a mother who watched this girl grow up since she was a child, Zhao Jingshu suddenly felt a sense of shame for not teaching her child well. She bowed to Song Si, symbolically expressing her gratitude, and then quickly walked behind Tang Fan, and said with a sigh, "We haven't seen each other for more than half a year, how come you have become like this?" Although it was a derogatory remark, it was said by Zhao Jingshu with a hint of anger. And it sounded particularly kind to Tang Fan's ears. The little girl didn't care about the topic she was discussing, and flew into Zhao Jingshu's arms like a young swallow. "Aunt Zhao, you are finally here. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 587 Fighting. Zhao Jingshu's physical fitness was not good, but seeing Tang Fan rushing towards her, she opened her arms without thinking. Although he caught it, He was still taken back 2 steps by inertia, and was barely able to stand with the help of someone. Feeling the strength on her waist, Zhao Jingshu couldn't help turning her head and gave a sweet smile to the man who saved her from the water and fire. Tang Gang smiled at his wife, then turned his head and gave the girl in his wife's arms a brain burst. You are so old, but you only know how to act like a spoiled child, and you don't pay attention to the limit. Tang Fan covered his forehead and pouted, Aunt Zhao, look at my dad, he is so stingy. I just hugged you, and he beat me up without knowing the right or wrong. Please take care of him for me. This was the first time Tang Gang had seen Tang Fan's ability to put the blame on someone else, and he was completely stunned. After a long while, she finally found her voice, raised her neck, and roared, Tang Ziafan, you have become better at distorting the facts and making false accusations. You dare to let your Aunt Zhao control me? See how I deal with you. In Tang Fan's heart, Tang Gang was just a paper tiger. What's more, Zhao Jingshu was standing next to him. Facing Tang Gang's threat, Tang Fan was not afraid at all. She stuck out her tongue at Tang Gang and made a face. Lulu. Tang Gang reached out to catch her, so she always kept a distance of more than an arm's length from Tang Gang, and circled around Zhao Jingshu with Tang Gang. Zhao Jingshu, sandwiched between the father and daughter, protected Tang Fan, stopped Tang Gang, and persuaded him softly. The family was in a mess, as if they had returned to the past, without experiencing separation and without any estrangement. Zhao Jingshu's heart, which had been hanging since Tang Fan disappeared, finally settled back into her stomach at this moment. It's great to be together as a family. Even when Zhao Jingshu saw Songsi, she felt a little more comfortable. On the contrary, Songsi felt a little uncomfortable watching the warm scene of the family reunion. He had rescued the little girl from a place where no one lived and no one laid eggs, but before she had been with her for 2 days, she had to give her up to someone else and was being guarded against like a wolf. If he had known it would be like this, he would have stayed in Jim Field's territory. He was careless. Thinking of this, Songsi looked at Tang Fan with a bit of resentment unconsciously. This gaze, like a real one, made Tang Fan's back cold, and he couldn't help but glance at Songsi who was staring at him. When masters fight, they should go all out. Tang Fan was distracted and naturally fell behind. The little girl's footsteps stagnated, revealing a flaw. Tang Gang seized the opportunity, stepped forward, grabbed her collar, and lifted the little girl up. It's only been a few days, and not only have your legs and feet improved, but your courage has also grown. You even dare to play tricks on your father. Tang Fan was not tall to begin with, and being held by Tang Gang's collar was like holding a chicken. That look was just funny in the eyes of most people. But in Song Si's eyes, there was only heartache. Major General Song Si, who has always been cautious in his words and deeds, had a situation in his life where his body was faster than his brain for the first time. By the time he reacted, his hand had already grabbed Tang Gang's wrist. Feeling the gossiping eyes around him, Zhao Jingshu's thoughtful gaze, and Tang Gang's unfriendly eyes, Song Si realized his impulse belatedly. But at this point, Song Si could only bite the bullet and laugh dryly. We are all family, it's just a joke. Why is Colonel Tang still competing with a child? Chapter 588, I can't accept it. As smart as Zhao Jingshu was, she looked around the 3 people who were entangled together, and quickly came to her senses after connecting the big and small things that happened before. No wonder Tang Fan was anxious to ask her to manage Tang Gang. No wonder Song Si not only gave up his interests, but also wrote it down in black and white. No wonder Tang Gang didn't rush to contact her after he disappeared for more than half a year. Everything was explained at this moment. It turned out that the son of Marshal Song, the youngest major general in the alliance, and her Afan's brother, fell in love with their Afan. Moreover, judging from this posture, the young man was quite deeply involved. Their Afan has made a good career. However, she can allow Tang Fan to fall in love, even get married and have children. But Tang Gang, can he agree? After knowing each other for so many years, she knows Tang Gang very well. In Tang Gang's heart, there will never be anyone in the world who loves Afan more than him. No one is more tolerant of her than him. No one pampers her and cares for her more than him. Let him give up his baby? Impossible. Not possible in this lifetime. Even if Tang Fan is tempted and determined to pursue that man, even if Tang Gang cannot interfere, he must make him look bad. Tang Gang will not give a good result to someone like Song Si, who chases Tang Fan and comes to him. Don't look at Tang Gang, who always wears a mask of negotiating everything. In fact, He's evil. Song Si is looking for trouble like this. Zhao Jingshu, who thinks she has seen through everything, ignores Tang Fan's look of help, silently takes a step back, grabs a handful of melon seeds from the space buckle, squats under a big tree, and becomes a spectator. The child is grown up, and she can't stop him from falling in love. She can't help her husband's face. It's good not to help either. Besides, the youngest Major General of the Alliance is frustrated. This kind of scene is rare in a century. If you miss this time, you don't know when you will have to wait. She must record it with her eyes. She can show off for half her life. Zhao Jingshu's thoughts were clearly on her face, making Tang Fan want to cry, but she couldn't. She thought she had called in a reinforcement, but she actually made a mistake and invited a big Buddha who only loved to eat melons. Nowadays, it is easy to invite a god but difficult to send him away. I am afraid that everything that happened today is destined to be spread out of Zhao Jingshu's big mouth and become a joke among relatives and friends. She should be thankful that Zhao Jingshu still took into account that this was Song Si's territory and did not take out the video equipment to leave ironclad evidence. Tang Fan, who was thinking wildly, forgot that he was still held in Tang Gang's hand. He nodded his little head and put his neck on the collar. The head of the Tang sect, who did not check for a while, immediately staged a reality show of hanging himself on the southeast tree in full view of everyone. The little girl rarely made a fool of herself, and almost scared Tang Gang and Song Si, who were secretly competing with each other, to death. The two men temporarily put aside their desire to win, loosened their hands, and all greeted Tang Fan. They were busy and happy, helping him to relieve his anger and fetch water. This amazing operation successfully shocked the crowd of spectators. Led by Zhao Jingshu. She quietly put away her melon seeds, patted the residue on her hands, and gave Tang Fan a thumbs up. She finally understood what there are reasons for making mistakes and suicidal rescue meant. This operation was amazing, and she couldn't help but admit it. Chapter 589 Goodbye God Operation. Miss Tang Fan has family affection on her left hand and love on her right hand. She lives a perfect life and has no thoughts of suicide. Although she rarely makes a fool of herself and hangs herself on a tree, she didn't use much force. She coughed twice and felt uncomfortable for a while, but she was fine. But looking at the two men running around and Zhao Jingshu's thumbs up, Tang Fan lowered her head silently. After thinking about it, Tang Fan coughed twice again. Unlike the coughing before, there was obviously a bit of guilt in these two coughs. But the two men running around didn't notice it at all. Song Si was running around, and Zhao Jingshu didn't have any opinions. But seeing Tang Gang's nervous look, Zhao Jingshu still felt a little uncomfortable. It's not that she likes to be jealous, it's really that Tang Gang treats her differently too obviously. Whenever there is something related to Tang Fan, even if it's a small thing like choking on saliva, Tang Gang is so excited that he cares more about her than his wife. Thinking of this, Zhao Jingshu couldn't help but touch her back teeth with the tip of her tongue, and she made a tisk sound. The two busy men didn't notice it, but Tang Fan heard it carefully, and didn't dare to continue to make trouble, and slowly calmed down. Seeing Tang Fan slowly calm down, Tang Gang's reason slowly returned to the cage. He nodded Tang Fan's head with a look of disappointment, and scolded, "How old are you, and you still use your neck to hang the collar of your clothes? You are really getting worse and worse." Tang Fan knew he was wrong, and didn't dare to defend himself, so he could only lower his head to accept the scolding. Tang Fan himself didn't think there was anything wrong, but Song Si, looking at Tang Fan's pitiful appearance, felt sorry for him. He couldn't catch up with Zhao Jingshu, and couldn't stop Tang Gang, so he was very anxious. He glanced around and happened to catch sight of old man Li Bangsha passing by. Song Si was like seeing a life-saving straw, and quickly grabbed the corner of the old man's robe in his hand. Feeling the resistance, old man Li Bangsha had to stop, turned his head, and smiled bitterly at Song Si. "Song family boy, you should know that it is difficult for an honest judge to judge family affairs." Song Si naturally understood the truth, but he did not let go. Instead, he shook the lapel in his hand and softened his voice, off and just coughed so hard, obviously injured. "You are a doctor, you should be compassionate, just take a look at her." Li Bangsha, who watched Song Si grow up, saw him act like a spoiled child for the first time in his life. His heart, which was originally 3 points softer than others, could no longer be hardened. He shook his head and smiled bitterly. Come on, come on." The old man moved towards Tang Fan resignedly, muttering, "I'm afraid I owed you little bastards in my previous life." Seeing that his goal was achieved, Song Si's mouth curled up high, and he pretended not to hear the complaints of old man Li Bangsha. As for the surprised looks of the people around him, Song Si ignored them completely. What's the big deal about the collapse of his personality? How can it be more important than his wife? Didn't you see that his wife's forehead was poked red by Tang Yang's rough finger? At this critical moment, as long as he can save his wife from danger, let alone act like a spoiled child with Mr. Li Bangsha. As long as he can achieve his goal and make him roll on the ground, that's definitely not a problem. Didn't you see that Tang Yang stopped immediately after Mr. Li Bangsha took action? This is the effect we want. Chapter 590. Tang Fan himself was quite special. Although it was just a small cough, Mr. Li Bangsha suggested a comprehensive examination, and Tang Yang had no reason to refuse. Of course, he did not miss the little tricks of Song Si and Mr. Li Bangsha. Because he was worried that Song Si would play some conspiracy again, he had to accompany them throughout the whole process and follow them step by step. Song Si's brain was not a decoration. He tested Tang Yang on the edge of death once, and Tang Yang didn't care about him. Song Si couldn't go too far. He watched the two elders take Tang Fan away. Song Si felt that the saying "don't do it or you will die" still made sense. In order to be able to marry a wife alive, it is better to do less things like stirring up trouble and stroking the tiger whiskers of the father-in-law. If you have that time, you might as well have a frank talk with your future mother-in-law. Watching the little girl who was on the tip of his heart gradually walk away from a distance, and finally turned into a small black dot and disappeared from his sight, Song Si turned his head, smiled at Zhao Jingshu, and made a gesture of invitation. Zhao Jingshu, who had a plan in mind, finally put aside her doubts and followed Song Si into the meeting room again with a smile. This time, Zhao Jingshu did not hesitate and happily signed her name and the official seal of Tang's Mecha on the unreasonable contract. Looking at the contract in black and white, the two people who got what they wanted smiled at the same time. But when Zhao Jingshu, who was laughing happily, saw Song Si's smiling face, she immediately restrained herself a little and said in a deep voice, "Although I am not Ah Fan's biological mother, I have treated her as my own daughter since she was a child. But Ah Fan has been mature and sensible since she was a child. She has her own ideas about everything and has never let me, the cheap mother who came out halfway, worry about it. I didn't take care of her when she was young, and I can't take care of her when she grew up. Thinking about it this way, I am really a failure as a cheap mother." Zhao Jingshu used a casual tone. "I didn't take care of her when she was young, and I can't take care of her when she grew up," to put forward her position, and successfully block the words that Song Si was about to say. The future mother-in-law made it clear that she would not help either side, and Song Si could not force her. After locking the contract that had just been signed in an orderly manner and respectfully sending away Zhao Jingshu, who was not soft or hard, and was taking advantage of Zhao Jingshu, Song Si felt a headache. This kind of roundabout way of speaking is the favorite of the people in the capital star, and it is also something he has practiced since he was a child. Now, just listening to Zhao Jingshu's words, he has such a headache. If Song Yuanqi and Song Yuanqi see it, he will definitely be punished. It seems that he has to pick up a lot of things. However, this way, his time is even tighter. Song Si's tongue touched his back teeth, clicked his tongue, opened the light brain, opened the contact list, and his finger hovered over the three words Song Yuanqi for a long time, and finally clicked it. After a long busy tone, Song Yuanqi finally answered the video call. The father and son who had not seen each other for a long time looked at each other across the star network for a long time. And Song Si finally couldn't hold it in and spoke first. The situation here is a bit complicated. As a father and son, although they don't meet often, they still have the tacit understanding they should have. Song Yuanqi only heard half of this sentence and understood what Song Si wanted to express. "I'm already on my way to the Savage Star territory. Prepare the information and we'll have a face-to-face meeting." Song Si pursed her lips and nodded heavily. Chapter 591 Credit Bankruptcy. Song Si sat by the window of the conference room. Instead of waiting for Song Yuanqi, he received news from Grandpa Li Bangsha. A simple physical examination report with only a few lines of words frightened Song Si out of his wits. It was not for anything else, but because of the two words Tang Fan on the top of the head. Yes, the physical examination method, which was originally used to prevent Tang Fan from being constantly nagged by Tang Yang, unexpectedly brought about unexpected side effects for Song Si. With the help of the new physical examination instrument that the Expeditionary Army had just obtained, Tang Fan's various physical indicators were directly accurate to 3 decimal places. Tang Fan's body was special. Since entering the Blue Sea Mecha Academy, he would go to Grandpa Li Bangsha for a physical examination regularly. Grandpa Li Bangsha felt sorry for this poor child, so he couldn't help but pay more attention to her affairs and read the report more carefully. Several indicators that changed slightly were circled by Grandpa Li Bangsha, and he also specially modeled and analyzed them. The analysis results showed that most of the data were normal, with only 2 values showing slight deviations. Although the difference was not large, given Tang Fan's background, Mr. Li Bangsha did not dare to make a rash judgment. While arranging further special examinations for Tang Fan, he sent a message to Song Si to tip him off. As soon as Song Si saw the news, he took out his mecha without considering anything else and rushed to the infirmary. As soon as Song Yuanshi got off the starship, he saw the scene of his son driving his exclusive mecha, and his face suddenly became long. Although he knew that Song Si was not arrogant and domineering and ignored military regulations and discipline, Song Yuanshi's face was still as red as the bottom of a pot. He took a few breaths and tried to control his temper. He then gritted his teeth and said to his adjutant in a cold voice, "You are driving a mecha in the camp without permission during non-war time. When this kid is done going crazy, let him come to my office to find me." The adjutant responded obediently and immediately ran away, trying to keep up with Song Si's mecha with his flesh and blood. Fortunately, Song Si's mecha had a large target and the destination was not too far, so the adjutant did not lose him. When he finally caught up with the infirmary, the adjutant's heart skipped a beat and he couldn't help frowning. He took a few quick steps and stopped a military doctor inside, and said in a deep voice, "What happened to Major General Song?" The military doctor was confused by the adjutant's earth-shattering question. He didn't know how to answer this question. So, the poor military doctor could only turn his head and look helplessly at his colleague who knew Major General Song's health best, Song Si's cheap sister, classmate Song Tong. When Song Tong heard this, her pretty face sank. She kept Song Si under her nose every day, following Song Si everywhere, fearing that Song Si would get hurt. It was tiring enough. Now, she has to be on guard against others reporting her, right? That black-hearted person is spreading rumors. Song Tong had just said half of her words when she suddenly realized something and silently swallowed a second half of the sentence. Adjutant Mo misunderstood. "Aussie is fine." That's right. Song Tong talked for a long time, but didn't finish the second half of the sentence. Mo Xian's expression suddenly became particularly ugly. "Whether Song Si is okay or not is not up to you. I'll go and see it myself." Mo Xian's tone was very tough, and it was clear that he didn't believe Song Tong. This can't be blamed on Mo Xian, who made Song Tong and Song Si lie to their elders so many times together that their credit has long been bankrupt. Chapter 592. More than just. Song Tong, whose credit was bankrupt, glanced at the innermost room of the infirmary and laughed dryly. "Adjutant Mo, I really didn't lie this time. If you want to go and see it yourself, I won't stop you. However, if you see something you shouldn't see, you will have to bear the consequences yourself." Mo Xian silently retracted his legs and raised his eyebrows. "Is there anything I shouldn't see in the infirmary of the Expeditionary Army?" Song Tong got excited when he heard this. "Adjutant Mo, look at what you said. There are many things in the infirmary of the Expeditionary Army that you shouldn't see. Some things, not to mention you, even if my adoptive father, Marshal Song, comes, you still can't see them." Mo Xian has been with Song Yuanshi for nearly 60 years, and this is the first time that someone has given him face. But what Song Tong said really made some sense, and he was speechless for a moment. In an instant, Mo Xian's expression became very interesting. It was rare that he had the upper hand over Mo Xian, and Song Tong was in a very good mood, with curved eyebrows and eyes, like a kitten who had successfully stolen some meat. However, not everyone is as brave as Song Tong, and not everyone is as ignorant of reading people's faces as Song Tong. At least, the doctor who was stopped by Mo Xian was far from that. Before Mo Xian could say anything, he hurriedly stood up and took the initiative to explain for Song Tong. Most of the infirmaries are now empty, and only the examination room at the end has been lent to Professor Li Bangsha. The professor's patient is a woman, so it may not be convenient. The doctor was interrupted by Mo Xian before he finished speaking. "I'm not interested in the use of your infirmary." Upon hearing this, the doctor shut up awkwardly and looked at Song Tong helplessly. Song Tong patted the doctor's shoulder and sighed. In the eyes of our adjutant Mo, there is only Marshal Song and the tasks assigned by Marshal Song. We are just a little doctor, not worthy of his attention. He will not lower himself to the level of arguing with us. Song Tong's words were unpleasant to hear, but they were all true. Although Mo Xian was talented, he was a bit old-fashioned. He always put Song Yuan's poems and tasks first, and it was inevitable that he would betray Song Tong and Song Si. The siblings would always look for opportunities to retaliate afterwards, but Mo Xian never took it to heart. Occasionally, when they went too far, Mo Xian would just catch them, put them in the confinement room to calm down, and give them a small punishment. She was used to being disrespectful to Mo Xian, but others were not used to it. Especially the unlucky doctor. His eyes were red after hearing what Song Tong said. If the timing was not wrong and Mo Xian was still standing there, he could have burst into tears. Looking at his colleague's expression of despair, and then looking at Mo Xian's obviously unhappy expression, Song Tong realized that he seemed to have lost his sense of propriety. But words spoken, water spilled, can't be taken back. No matter how much Song Tong regretted, it was useless. He could only laugh dryly and change the subject. Speaking of which, Adjutant Mo also knows the person who did the inspection. Song Tong's skill in changing the subject was really poor, but Mo Xian took over the conversation for Song Yuanqi's sake. Oh, I know him too? I wonder which one it is. Song Tong chuckled, opened his thin lips, and uttered two words, Tang Fan. Mo Xian, who only had Song Yuanqi and the mission in his heart, was stunned for a moment before reacting. Madam's goddaughter, Song Tong nodded, then shook his head. Not only is she my stepmother's goddaughter, but she is also Colonel Tang Gang's niece, the sweetheart of our RC. Chapter 593, Brain-Filling Pitfalls. Although Mo Xian is a bit old-fashioned, he is talented and good at grasping the key points. Song Tong mentioned many people in one sentence, but Mo Xian focused on the last few words. Assie's sweetheart. Song Tong quickly covered his mouth with a look of horror, and the words "how did I let it slip" were almost written on his face. This exaggerated acting is no different from confessing without being asked. Mo Xian doesn't believe it if he says it's not intentional. Mo Xian, who has always put official business first and has not been involved in love for half his life, came to his senses and his old face immediately became longer than a donkey. So, what's wrong with this girl? Let Major General Song disregard his image and military regulations and drive a mecha in the camp without authorization to catch up with a little time. There are 1,000 Hamlets in the eyes of 1,000 people. In Song Tong's eyes, an extremely romantic thing has become an unreasonable act in Mo Xian's eyes. Song Tong fully understands, but he is determined not to forgive. The young lady was also a person with a temper. Facing Mo Xian's condemnation, she shrugged calmly, spread her hands, and threw out 8 big words, military secrets, no comment. This was the most common words that Mo Xian used to shut others up, but suddenly others used it in the opposite way to shut Mo Xian up. It was really a classic example of a series of things that I would never expect in my lifetime. Mo Xian's old face almost fell, and he moved his lips and couldn't say a word for a long time. The doctor, who was originally trying to smooth things over, saw that the situation was not right, so he quickly leaned against the wall, restrained his breathing, and slipped away quietly. Only Song Tong was left standing there, playing the game of staring at Mo Xian. It was not until the door behind Song Tong closed slightly that this boring game came to a temporary end. As soon as Tang Gang opened the door, he felt 2 hot gazes. He looked closely and couldn't help frowning. Song Tong, as a military doctor of the Expeditionary Army, had a life and death friendship with Tang Fan. It was normal for him to wait at the door. However, Mo Xian's appearance here was beyond Tang Gang's expectation. As a colonel of the Expeditionary Army, Tang Gang naturally had many dealings with Mo Xian. Although he could not say that he knew everything about the adjutant's temper, he knew a thing or two. A person who had not come to the temple for no reason would stand guard at the door of the examination room for him? Tang Gang was not so confident. But Fan should not have had any contact with Mo Xian. Tang Gang had his doubts in his heart, raised a business smile to Mo Xian, and asked tentatively, "Adjutant Mo is looking for me." Mo Xian wanted to shake his head to deny it, but thinking about what Song Tong had just said, he held back. Song Si, who grew up with the military rules and regulations of the Expeditionary Army, would knowingly break the law for a woman. How charming that woman must be. Mo Xian had never met Tang Fan, But since Tang Fan was Tang Gang's niece, they should look alike. Mo Xian thought so and couldn't help but look Tang Gang up and down. However, the picture of Tang Gang and Song Si together was so beautiful that Mo Xian couldn't help but shudder. After knowing each other for so many years, Song Tong obviously understood Mo Xian much more deeply than Tang Gang. Tang Gang was still confused, but Song Tong had already understood everything from Mo Xian's expression and successfully imagined the picture that Mo Xian imagined. The picture was so beautiful that Song Tong couldn't help but burst out laughing. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 594, Order or Request. Song Tong's laughter came suddenly, and Mo Xian, who had imagined too much, was slightly embarrassed by the laughter, while Tang Gang, who was confused, was stunned by the laughter. When Song Si walked out with old man Li Bangxia, he saw such a funny scene. He was worried, so he didn't laugh. Instead, he frowned and said coldly, "No noises allowed at the entrance of the infirmary." With one sentence, he directly lost face for the three people. Song Tong shut up silently, and Mo Xian and Tang Gang also lowered their heads in embarrassment. But obviously, Song Si didn't take it to heart. He silently supported old man Li Bangxia and walked towards the playground. Song Tong looked at the backs of the two people going away, and suddenly realized something, and hurriedly caught up with big strides. After all, Song Tong was young. Even if his physical fitness was average, he quickly caught up with Song Si, who was supporting old man Li Bangxia, and walked towards the woman standing alone under the tree on the playground, fiddling with leaves. Hearing the approaching footsteps, Tao Kingxi reluctantly dropped the green banyan leaf in his hand that was unique to the Savage Star region and exuded a unique fragrance, and raised his head with a vigilant look. When he was sure that the three familiar faces standing in front of him were, Tao Kingxi silently breathed a sigh of relief, picked up the leaves on the ground, sat cross-legged on the ground, and raised a big, businesslike smile. "I am very grateful that you can take the time to come and see me despite your busy schedule." Tao Kingxi's expression was smiling, but her words were elegant and sour, with obvious dissatisfaction, which made Song Si's teeth ache. Old man Li Bangxia was old and of high seniority, so Song Si was reluctant to use him as a shield, so he could only look for help at Song Tong, who grew up with him and was also a woman. Song Tong received Song Si's eyes, sighed silently, sorted out his emotions, squeezed Tao Kingxi's side, and smiled and said, "I have been away from the expeditionary army for more than half a year, and a lot of chores have piled up. I ignored my predecessors, which is my fault. Look, as soon as I got free, I ran to you to apologize for my crime, didn't I?" Women all need to be coaxed. Even though she knew that Song Tong's words were seriously bloated, Tao Kingxi was still very pleased. 8 wide and bright teeth returned to the back of her red lips, and she put on a proud expression and said loudly, "Since you sincerely admit your mistakes, as long as you have nothing to do and come to see me more often, I will forgive you with great mercy." After saying it like reciting a line, Tao Kingxi and Song Tong, two drama queens, laughed to themselves. It was not until Song Si couldn't help coughing that Song Tong remembered his mission and restrained his smile. Tao Kingxi was not a fool. When he saw the posture of the brother and sister, his heart began to beat. "What kind of secret signals are you two making in front of me? Is it that serious? In your territory, why are you asking me, a weak woman who can't even tie a chicken, to do anything? Can I say no?" Miss Tao Kingxi's words were too sharp, and they made Song Tong and Song Si speechless. Seeing that the situation was not right, Mr. Li Bangxia patted Song Si's hand and took the initiative to stand up. "It's embarrassing to say. I have a patient who has certain problems in genetics. I have observed for many years, but I haven't found the crux of the problem." Mr. Li Bangxia started evasively, and Tao Kingxi immediately came to her senses. She raised her eyebrows and said coldly, "Is this an order or a request?" Chapter 595. If it was an order, Tao Kingxi, standing on the territory of the expeditionary army, naturally could not refuse. But if it was a request, Song Tong glanced at Tao Kingxi's unfriendly expression, staring at Song Si with worry in his eyes. Not only Song Tong was not optimistic about Song Si, but even old man Li Bangxia felt that the situation was not optimistic. The old man sighed, and just wanted to stand up again to smooth things over, but was stopped by Song Si. But Song Si squatted down in front of him, staring into Tao Kingxi's eyes, and said word by word, "The Expeditionary Army has no practice of ordering subordinates to do extra things. What's more, Miss Tao Kingxi is not a member of my Expeditionary Army. I have no right and position to give orders. This is just my personal, private request. I hope Miss Tao can seriously consider it." Tao Kingxi thought that Song Si would bully others with his power, and he had made plans that wealth and honor cannot corrupt, poverty and humbleness cannot move, and might and power cannot bend. Who knew that Song Si would speak earnestly and respectfully? Tao Kingxi was stunned. Tang Yang, who followed, felt mixed emotions when listening to this conversation. He believed that he loved Tang Fan deeply, but when he saw Song Si put everything aside and arranged things for Tang Fan, he felt that there was another man who loved his baby in a different way. That feeling was particularly complicated. The one who felt more complicated than Tang Yang was Mo Xian, who was half a step behind him. Looking at the two people squatting and sitting, Mo Xian's face rarely showed a trace of emotion. He silently passed Tang Yang, strode to Tao Kingxi, and whispered, "Kingxi." The low and familiar voice fell into Tao Kingxi's ears, and immediately amplified countless times, causing Tao Kingxi to jump up and hide behind a big tree. The speed that was so fast that it did not match Tao Kingxi's physical strength shocked most of the people at the scene and successfully angered Mo Xian. He squinted his eyes, staring at the big tree in front of him that was in the way, and sneered at the woman behind the tree who was asking for death. "Are you going to come out by yourself, or are you waiting for me to come and catch you in person?" Tao Kingxi pursed his lips, laughed dryly and walked out from behind the tree. "Mo Xian, long time no see. Why are you here?" Mo Xian tugged at his military uniform and sneered, "What do you think?" Tao Kingxi, who was beaten to pulp because of asking a stupid question, really didn't know how to face Mo Xian, who was full of aura, so he could only look at Song Si for help. Song Si, who was watching the show, didn't want to face Mo Xian directly. But Tao Kingxi's eyes, which were somewhat threatening in his request for help, reminded Song Si of Tang Fan, who was now under anesthesia and lying quietly in the treatment cabin. Song Si, who needed help, could only bite the bullet and stand up, blocking between Tao Kingxi and Mo Xian, holding Mo Xian's shoulders, and trying to smooth things over. "Adjutant Mo, Miss Tao is my guest after all. Can you put aside your grudges for my sake?" Mo Xian rubbed his back teeth, clicked his tongue, and mercilessly slapped Song Si's hand away. He grabbed Tao Kingxi and brought her in front of him like a chicken, saying coldly, "I'm sorry. I can't give you this face. Major General Song has time to care about other people's affairs. Why don't you care about yourself first? When you get to the marshal's office later, how are you going to explain your behavior of driving a mecha in the camp without authorization during a non-wartime situation?" Chapter 596. Tao Kingxi and Song Si had not had much contact and did not know each other well. But Tao Kingxi knew that there were not many people who could allow a major general of the alliance to drive a mecha in the camp without authorization in a non-wartime state. And there were even fewer people who could make so many people surround her and wait for her to nod and agree. A clean, palm-sized face immediately flashed in Tao Kingxi's mind. She once did not understand why the girl who was loved by so many people would give up her comfortable life and choose to go through life and death with her. Now, Tao Kingxi seems to understand a little. Since the little girl can sacrifice her life to accompany her gentleman, what reason does she have to give up her former comrade in arms? Even if there is a Mo Xian in this expeditionary force. Tao Kingxi paused, turned around, stared into Song Si's eyes, and said solemnly, "Major General Song, if the patient is the one we all know, I will take this job." Tao Kingxi's sudden words stunned everyone present. Song Si finally came to his senses and smiled. "Thank you, Ms. Tao. If you have any requests during the cooperation, please feel free to ask. As long as I can do it, I will go through fire and water without hesitation." The weight of Song Si's words surprised everyone present. However, Tao Kingxi was not moved. She waved her hand nonchalantly and said calmly, "I didn't agree to this for your sake. What does it have to do with you?" Song Si, who was confronted with a face, was not angry, but the smile on her face was enlarged a bit. "I am self-indulgent. I still have official business to attend to. Ms. Tao, please do as you please." Tao Kingxi did not speak again, but nodded slightly. Song Si solved a big thing in his heart, took a deep breath, and strode towards Song Yuanqi's office. Song Si, the major general of the alliance and the son of the marshal, was sent away by Mo Xian. No matter how curious others were, they could only find their own excuses and leave one after another. Looking at the group of people who kept looking back, Mo Xian's face, which was already as gloomy as the bottom of a pot, became even stronger. Mo Qingxi, go to my office or stay here and make a fool of yourself. You can choose one. Someone who had stopped struggling turned around and gave Mo Xian a claw. How many times have I told you that my last name is Tao, not Mo? From the moment Bixi and I left Shanglixing, we had nothing to do with your Mo family. Don't use your Mo family's tricks on us and act like an elder to me. Tao Qingxi's words were cold, and every word was like a slap on Mo Xian's face, but Mo Xian could only bear it. Because he owed it to Mo Qingxi and Mo Bixi, now called Tao Qingxi and Tao Bixi. Mo Xian took a deep breath, trying to control his emotions, squeezing out a little tenderness he had left, and whispered in a hoarse voice, Qingxi, I'm sorry. These three simple words exhausted all of Mo Xian's strength, and successfully evoked the memories deep in Tao Qingxi's heart. She wanted to forget the memories that she had never been able to forget in her life. In an instant, hot tears blurred Tao Qingxi's vision. She stared at Mo Xian blankly, muttering, too late. Too late. Chapter 597. The two words were like a heavy punch, hitting Mo Xian hard, making his heart, liver, spleen, stomach and kidneys all hurt. Yes, he, and even the Mo family, owed this apology, which was indeed late. It was late for decades. For decades, most of the parties involved have turned into a pile of yellow earth, leaving only the living to pay for the mistakes of the previous generation. Especially Qingxi in front of him, this girl who suffered a devastating disaster, should have the right to choose her own surname, but she has no obligation to listen to him as an elder. Mo Xian, who finally figured it out, slowly let go of Tao Qingxi's hand and murmured, I know that Changlin Mo family is worthy of heaven and earth, and the only thing I am sorry for is you three mothers and daughters. But we are also trying our best to compensate. It would have been better if Mo Xian didn't mention it. As soon as he mentioned this, Tao Qingxi's anger rushed up all of a sudden, and the whole person became extremely sharp. She stretched out her finger and poked Mo Xian's chest again and again, saying viciously, what a man who is worthy of both heaven and earth for being the chief of the Mo family. What a good family tradition. Just dumping scrap metal in front of us three daughters and mothers, they can enjoy the peace and tranquility gained by sacrificing my father with peace of mind. Who would have thought that a frail woman lost her husband? Who would have thought that two girls who just turned 13 lost their father, who treated them like the apple of his eye? Adjutant Mo, not all apologies can be exchanged for it's okay. Not all mistakes can be forgiven. We don't want anything that you, the chief of the Mo family, have given us. You will never be able to repay us for what you owe us in your lifetime. Adjutant Mo Xian, who has always been invincible and has been able to overcome all obstacles, was defeated step by step when facing Tao Qingxi's tearful accusations. Since childhood, everyone has told him, a real man should consider the overall situation and not seek personal gain. He should sacrifice his own family for the sake of the public. He has listened to this for many years and has become accustomed to this way of thinking, but he has never thought about the thoughts of those sacrificed families, the elderly, the weak, women and children. Now, when Tao Qingxi tore open the window paper and put everything he tried to escape in front of him, Mo Xian was silent. After all, it is impossible to pick up the broken three views without spending some time. However, Miss Tao Qingxi will not wait for him to reshape his three views. Since she opened her mouth, Tao Qingxi simply poured out all the words that she had hidden in her heart for decades, and the suffering she suffered because of her father's early death. Ms. Tao Qingxi's eloquence was extraordinary at this moment. Until Song Si walked out of Song Yuanqi's office and Tang Fan climbed out of the treatment cabin, this guy couldn't shut his mouth. She didn't expect that every word she said without controlling the volume was recorded by the surveillance camera and became the topic of gossip among the senior officials of the Expeditionary Army. Tao Qingxi, who left a black history for the sake of momentary pleasure, never thought that she would sign many unequal treaties with the father and son of the Song family in order to destroy this piece of evidence in the future. She basically sold her short second half of life to the Expeditionary Army, and together with Mr. Li Bangsha, she studied drugs to improve and repair genes from Miss Tang Fan. Of course, Tao Qingxi had to admit that these days in the Expeditionary Army were the happiest time in her short life. There were comrades in arms who fought against Jim Field together, comrades in arms who studied genes together, and comrades in arms who teased Motion together. The ordinary life suddenly became meaningful because of these people and these things. Chapter 598, Laughing or Crying. Although it was Song Si who made the decision, Tao Qingxi and Zhao Jin who stayed behind. Both of them agreed to stay in the Savage Star region. But in the end, neither of them stayed in the Expeditionary Army's territory, but followed Tang Fan to planet R25. Looking at Tao Qingxi's back as she turned away without hesitation, Motion felt mixed emotions, and didn't even know whether she felt more disappointed or happy. In contrast, Song Si's reluctance to leave Tang Fan was particularly obvious. In public, this guy quickly caught up with Tang Fan, grabbed the girl's hand tightly, and dragged her aside. In public, this guy still knew the limits and didn't do anything excessive, but just leaned close to the little girl's ear and whispered a few words. The distance was a bit far, so I could only see this guy talking, but I didn't know what he said. However, when he finished speaking, the little girl's face turned red at a speed visible to the naked eye. The old father Tang Gang's eyes were almost green, and his fists could squeeze out water. If Zhao Jingshu hadn't held him tightly, who knows what this guy could have done. Although he felt that his back was about to be burned by someone's gaze, Song Si didn't retreat a single step. Next, Tang Fan had to clean up the mess of Tang's mecha, and he had to clean up the mess left by Jim Field. No one knew when they would meet again. He had to seize the last bit of time together to change his embarrassing situation of being an unknown concubine. He gave the little girl more than a month to adapt to the change in their identities, which had exhausted all his patience. Song Si himself was not sure what Tang Fan would do if he didn't give him an answer. He took the little girl's hand, shook it slightly, and said angrily, "If you don't give me a definite answer today, I won't let you go." The coquettish and willful appearance of the youngest major general in the alliance successfully shocked Tang Fan. Her two round eyes immediately widened by 3 points, and her long eyelashes kept flashing, like a frightened deer. So cute. Song Si's teasing became more intense. His slender calloused hand moved and gently pinched the girl's palm. "Just promise me, okay?" The warm and dry fingertips pressed tightly against Tang Fan's skin, slowly spreading from the palm of his hand, making the crystal clear skin stained with a touch of pink. The heat did not stop there. It went all the way up, scalding the tip of the girl's heart, dyeing her cheeks and ears red. The girl lowered her eyes and did not dare to look directly at the man in front of her who was acting coquettishly and had no bottom line. Just when the girl was at a loss, the broadcast of boarding the ship sounded without warning. Tang Fan's reason quickly returned, and the charming pink on his body faded a lot. "I have to go." Tang Fan's words were quite obvious, and he almost said "let go of me soon." Unexpectedly, Song Si not only did not let go of his hand, but wrapped it tighter. As a professional soldier, Song Si had countless ways to quietly hold the other person without hurting him. As long as he refused to let go, even if the other party lost half of his life, he would never be shaken. Tang Fan had seen him use these tricks countless times, but she never expected that one day, he would use these tricks on her. She was somewhat amused. Chapter 599 Girlfriend. Tang Fan knew that if he didn't give an explanation today, he would not be able to get away. Although this planet is not far from R25, it can be reached by driving a mecha without taking a starship. But there is no impenetrable wall in the world. When he thought about the reason for delaying his boarding, it was very likely that this man who would do anything to achieve his goal would inadvertently tell it to others. At that time, the 100% rate of turning back in all kinds of mixed comments. Just thinking about it, Tang Fan couldn't help but shudder. After hesitating for a few seconds, the little girl nodded slightly, barely acknowledging the identity of Song Si's boyfriend. The moment the little girl nodded, Song Si's calm and self-sustaining personality completely collapsed. Regardless of the gazes of the people around him, Song Si shamelessly took Tang Fan into his arms, pressed his side face tightly against her cheek, buried his face in her neck and laughed deeply. "Girlfriend, you can't go back on your word if you agree to it." Without waiting for Tang Fan to react, Song Si lowered his head and covered her lips, pecked her lightly. His movements were fast, fierce, and accurate, and it only took a few seconds, but the sensation caused was huge. For a while, cheers and whistles came one after another. There was also the roar of an old father. Tang Fan was frightened by this scene, and hurriedly pushed Song Si away, ran onto the starship without looking back, leaving Song Si standing there in a daze with an empty arms. The booing did not stop because the heroine disappeared. Song-si didn't care, but the girlfriend he had just got was no longer visible. If this group of people make trouble again next time. Song-si, who was in a headache, turned his head helplessly, bowed to the crowd of people who were making trouble, and said with a wry smile, "Please be kind, everyone, give me some face, and go away. I finally found a girlfriend, and my face is thinner than paper. If you make trouble, you can't afford to pay." Everyone laughed and was about to retreat. I don't know who was watching the fun and shouting in the crowd. Yes. 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 Only Colonel Tang can afford to pay. This sentence successfully triggered another carnival. Song-si, who was the general, rubbed his temple helplessly, and he didn't dare to look at the face of Colonel Tang, who was named. Colonel Tang, who was feared by Song-si, ignored his wife's obstruction, and slowly took off his military uniform that he was proud of for half his life. While stretching his muscles, he approached Song-si. Listening to the sound of clacking approaching step by step, Song-si silently lit a candle for himself and raised his head helplessly. Seeing the physical fitness suit that tightly wrapped Colonel Tang's perfect body, Song-si, who was trapped by his comrades, knew that something was wrong. A major general can refuse the unreasonable request of a colonel, but can a man refuse the request of his future father-in-law? So, when Colonel Tang said that he wanted to change places and have a good talk, Song-si nodded without any choice and followed Song-si into the training room. Although Song-si was a major general of the alliance, he still did not dare to destroy public property under the nose of Marshal Song Yuanshi. Therefore, even though he had the foresight to cover the camera in the training room, everyone still imagined a great action blockbuster through the sound of fists and skin contact and the tragic appearance of Song-si walking out of the training room. So for a long time, Song-si always felt that the way everyone looked at him was not right. Chapter 600. Although he was beaten up, at least he got a clear way out from his future father-in-law. Song-si felt that this deal was not a big loss. Lying in the treatment cabin, he even had the leisure to send messages to tease his newly acquired girlfriend. "Girlfriend, have you arrived?" A simple greeting, because of the addition of a title, became a little more ambiguous for no reason. Tang Fan on the other side of the Star Network suddenly recalled some scenes that had just happened, and her face turned red. She couldn't help but raise her hand to touch her lips. The soft and slightly cool touch seemed to be still there. It was probably that the 10 fingers were connected to the heart. Even her heart, which had been stable for many years, was like hiding a little rabbit, beating quickly and losing its original rhythm. This kind of emergency was the first time that Tang Fan, who had lived for more than 30 years, encountered. Smart and clever Miss Tang Fan, even if she had never eaten pork, she had seen pigs run. Although she had been single for more than 30 years, she understood almost everything she should understand. Although she was somewhat surprised at Song-si's influence on her, there was nothing shameful about being attracted to her boyfriend. The little girl digested it and calmly accepted it. Then, holding her pounding heart, she replied with 7 words, "Boyfriend, I'm almost there." After finally typing these 7 words, Tang Fan hardened her heart and clicked send. Then, Miss Tang Fan, who was doing this for the first time, couldn't help but shrink into the quilt and act like an ostrich. If her father Tang saw her shy little look, he wouldn't do anything to her, but Major General Song-si would have to lie in the medical cabin for a longer time. Song-si, who didn't know that he had escaped by luck, was now smiling like a 200-pound fool at the 3 words boyfriend on his light brain with a purple face. "There's nothing more touching in the world than I like you, and you happen to like me too. If there's, it's when I call you my girlfriend. You also say boyfriend to me." Major General Song-si smiled foolishly for half an hour. If Miss Tang Fan hadn't sent him a message saying "I'm here," he would have smiled for the rest of the day. Unfortunately, happy times are always short-lived. As a Major General of the Alliance who had disappeared for more than half a year, Major General Song-si's happiness was shorter than that of ordinary people. After finally climbing out of the medical cabin, he had no time to look in the mirror, tidy up, connect with his new girlfriend, or chat on video. He was directly carried by Song Yuanshi on the starship to the capital Star. Facing Marshal Song, who didn't recognize his relatives and the military uniform thrown in front of him, Song-si consciously put on a businesslike attitude and gave a brief report to his superior on the situation in the past 6 months. Although he was mentally prepared, Song-si's description still broke through Song Yuanshi's bottom line. What Song-si saw was just the tip of the iceberg. He and Song Yuanqi both knew that the part hidden behind, not exposed, was the big deal. And this big deal involved too many aspects. Even Song Yuanqi, the marshal of the alliance, had to be cautious and plan carefully. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.